an open forum as part of a research encounter and inquiry, began over a year ago. And it began with Richard Swan inviting myself and Flora as a collaboration to do a thought picture. Our thought picture was on the theme of thinking food. Bernard saw this in its process of making and said, "Are you running a workshop?" And we said, "No." And he said, "Would you like to?" We said, "Yes." We then came and met with Alicia and Bernard and Katie, and it was not going to be a workshop, it was going to be a residency, and this is part of the residency a year later. And the theme, Food, Land and Healing, came from Bernard's lips. The idea of thinking food, the concept of thinking food, is that in every exchange, in every inquiry, in every forum, in every workshop, in every conference, that you're thinking about what's going on around food, that food needs to be present and part of the conversation. You will see here in this corner, we have a food shrine. That food shrine is a shrine in celebration of water, in celebration of soil, in celebration of the plants that have been grown, with love, with spirit, and with hands-on preparations that have come from this land. We feel very grounded in the work that we've been doing all together because of that. The choice of Hawkwood is not by the way, and that's why we've had incredibly deep inquiring research with a lot of relationship between the land, between the food we've eaten, and between a healing space.
One of the things which over the millennia, if you like, we've come from a time where we were really working in harmony with nature and living fully within her and as a kind of family, and become more and more individual. And now we're in a situation where we take on a piece of land and it's ours as a farmer, it's ours, or a group of people take it on, and within that. One of the key things within biodynamics is also to try and see this as one organism, as a reflection of the whole earth, which is also a living organism, and to try and develop it so that we have an organism which begins to develop a life of its own through the fact that we try to be very sustainable, depend on what the farm itself produces for feed and manures and everything else, so we get an organism that develops. And if we do that, then we can create a farm with all the food that's produced, which is very healthy, very vital, and is resilient to all kinds of problems that come towards it, so that we can actually get a very strong vitality just by doing that. In addition, we have other means also enhancing that vitality. But in doing that, we can create a real living basis for the life of the soil and of the food we're eating. And that as well is then a basis, as the soil is a basis for plants to grow, so that organism of the farm can be the soil in which a community can grow. And we can do this in many different ways, and many farms actually do become cultural centres, become islands of culture and source for renewal in the social life. And we have examples here, because here at Hawkwood we have this landscape which is facilitating all kinds of activities. And of course we have Stroud Community Agriculture, which was established a decade ago to really form a community, and it's around the land. And that's an example of what can develop out of this farm organism. So out of this farm organism, this community which one's creating, then one can have a context, because it's a whole and a whole integrated, harmonious whole. It's a very healing environment. So it's a place one can find oneself and also find recuperate or actually begin to realize one's own creativity. it's also a place in which the food which we grow is really going to nourish us. So it's going to have the vitality that we need, because so much food today is actually just stomach filling. So we can actually have that experience. And the land itself, of course, is where we are at home. The earth is something we need to care for. And these are all elements which in the approach through biodynamic agriculture, caring for the land, the food we're eating, and each other, this is a possibility for us to renew something on our earth which is quickly being destroyed by many different ways, but which also is naturally aging. So we need to bring a renewal to that, and that's something which, through the biodynamic approach, we can try and do.
As Bernard has described, the exemplar given here is something not only to be celebrated, to come here for a few days and experience it is actually quite intoxicating. My ongoing love affair with the meadow, I hope after the experience out there will continue for a long time. As I'm afraid had to caution the people here, I'm an environmental engineer, that's my background. So I have to work with numbers out in the wider environment. And one number I heard this morning on the news, 1 in 5 households are now going into debt to meet their food bills. One of the other numbers that I gave here was that 1 in 6 households in this country are at serious flood risk.
I work as a part-time vegetable grower on an allotment-based community-supported agriculture project. I'm one of 7 families who work 4 adjacent allotments, and we work together every Friday morning to grow vegetables together. For me, the vegetables are probably the second benefit that I get from the project. The first is what I call soul food. I find that growing food and working a piece of land over a period of years is what feeds me spiritually. And if I miss my Friday morning, then the week doesn't go as well. And we not only work the land, we build the fertility of the land. We work very hard to make it better. And we celebrate the turning of the seasons. We work with the fire festivals.
The biggest amount of food imported by the UK is related to foodstuff, to food for feeding animals.
Cat food.
Yeah. So it's soybeans, soy cakes, and things related to that. I mean, not potatoes are there, tomatoes are there. This changed, but in the past 10 years, all the foodstuff they are there and they're at the top for the past 10 years. And then we see UK agriculture. You got a self-sufficient meat production and dairy production, which seems to be real, but it's dependent on an input resource. And then at the same time, we are all very pissed about the Brazilian government cutting down the Amazon forest. And we cannot see the relationship on the dairy production in the UK and in Aboriginal native communities in South America being affected by that. I mean, it's quite simple to see, but at the same time, it might be difficult.
And one of the questions we've asked is, what are your early memories of food? Do you have a funny story relating to food? So it's getting people to think about food, but not from a you should do this perspective. It's about their relationship with food, and through that identifying issues for them researchers potentially to understand.
These are made by allowing plant sap to run up filter paper and following them with particular metal salts again, the question is, what does those metal salts do to the process? It's a good question. However, if you do these tests, in inverted commas, on different days or in different weeks, you get different pictures from the same plant. So that involves a dynamic. Now the real question there is that something going on only in the outside world, or is there some aspect of this taking place in me?
I would hark back to perhaps about 5 years ago when a group of us, of which there are other members here as well, started meeting regularly for half a day every week to encounter nature. And we started off without an agenda, and I think that was quite an interesting process, that we actually just went out into the environments of Hawkwood here to see, to experience, to be not trying to extract any information or to particularly develop ourselves, but just to engage with nature. And fundamentally, I think we do need to find this new way, as Mike was saying, of making a relationship to the natural world which isn't with us being separate and a detached observer, which is the sort of ideal of the approach to natural science which has developed since Descartes, I suppose, since about the 16th century. So how do we engender another approach to the natural world which involves the human being? And if we can cultivate that, then I think we have a possibility of developing our social organism and our environmental organism at the same time.
Out about the benefits of raw food. Benefits include really high enzymes, which as we use less enzymes through life, we have less to use. Run out of enzymes, that's it, that's your sell by date. So if you having some raw food, and if you have if you have 80% raw food, cooked food, that's absolutely optimum for the other 20%, as long as it's not McDonald's.
With a group, she'll give everybody carrots to eat, blind. And generally speaking, I've never seen it not happen this way. Either the organic or the biodynamic generally is chosen blindly. Now, after she reveals what they are, people can either refuse to acknowledge their own experience or say, "Oh, that's interesting." So you're either a fool or you believe yourself. It's a fact. It's the most convincing thing.
You're either a fool or you believe yourself.
Well, why would you not do that? And so.
When I joined Hawkwood 18 months ago, I never thought that I would have such an interesting discussion and debate in a weekend. It's been great to dedicate time here to really key themes, really key things. And I particularly wanted to thank all the people who came to join us on the course, because it was such a lovely, diverse group. We had some extremely interesting discussions, and to open that up this morning and to thank the other presenters who joined us, it's really been a very special morning, I think. So I don't have any more to say other than thank you, and I'd like to continue this conversation here at Hawkwood, so expect more in due course.